What if I told you that silence speaks louder than any apology, explanation, or last message ever could? When she expected drama, you gave her distance. When she looked for a reaction, you gave her absence. And now, all she hears is the echo of everything she took for granted. You're not ignoring her to play games. You're not disappearing out of weakness. This silence? It's strategy. It's strength. It's the calm power of a man who doesn't beg to be understood. He lets his absence do the explaining. Because sometimes the most powerful statement is to say nothing at all. Right now, you can drown in the noise of overthinking, or rise above it in stillness. You can chase closure, or become the reason she reopens the door. If you're ready to master the art of silence and reclaim your power, hit that like button, subscribe, and comment below. I lead with silence, not emotion. Let's begin. Number 1. Disappear first. Let silence do what words can't. You want to reach out, to explain, to ask, to clarify. You feel the urge to make sense of it all, as if the right message could rewrite the ending. But the truth is, everything she needed to say, she already said, in silence. And the more you try to fill that silence with your words, the more you betray your own strength. Stoicism doesn't ask you to suppress your emotions, it asks you to master them. Right now you think disappearing is weakness, but it's not escape, it's strategy. It's not passive, it's an act of restraint that says, I don't need to beg to be heard. You disappear, not to punish her, but to return to yourself. That means no more checking her profile, no more waiting on a reply that never comes, no more reacting to her absence with desperation. You walk away, not loudly, not bitterly, but with purpose. Because disappearing isn't vanishing into nothingness, it's stepping back into your own world, the world you abandoned to orbit hers. Your silence doesn't go unnoticed. It creates space, it breaks patterns, it interrupts the expectation that you'll always be there. And in that space, something shifts. Not in your favor, but in your favor of self. You stop being the man who chases clarity and become the one who builds it, alone, without needing to be seen. The longer you stay silent, the louder your absence becomes. It doesn't scream. It hums. It echoes in the gaps where your energy used to be. You become less predictable, less available, more sovereign. And sovereignty is magnetic. Not because she can touch it, but because she can't control it. This isn't about manipulating her emotions, it's about ending the war within your own. You're not proving a point. You're proving to yourself that you no longer trade dignity for attention, that you can walk away and keep walking, not to make her chase, but to stop chasing. So don't send the message. Don't explain the silence. Let your absence say what your words never could. Now, speak out and comment below. I walk away with nothing to prove. My silence is my strength. Number 2. Stop performing. Grow without needing an audience. There's a quiet trap that most men fall into after a breakup. The need to be seen. Maybe you're not texting her anymore, maybe you've gone silent, but deep down, part of you still wants her to notice. You post more, you show off your progress, you hint at your healing. But healing that needs to be noticed isn't healing. It's a performance. Right now, your growth is still tethered to her gaze. You're not building in solitude. You're building on a stage, hoping the spotlight finds you again, and while it may feel like strength, it's just another form of dependence. Stoicism tells us that real power doesn't need validation. It thrives without it. It expands quietly. It grows roots in the dark. You need to remove the imaginary audience, not just her, but everyone you secretly hope is watching. Because the truth is, every time you seek recognition for your rise, you make your peace conditional. You say you've moved on, but if you're still refreshing your story views to see if she's watching, then your movement is just a loop. This is where the discipline begins, not in the gym, not in your journal, but in the decision to grow without applause. You wake up early not to prove anything, but because your mission demands it. You improve because you're called to, not because you want it noticed. You disappear, not to evoke curiosity, but to protect your evolution from distraction. And something profound happens in this space. Your identity becomes internal. You stop being reactive. You stop crafting your image for external approval. Instead, you become the man whose actions are rooted in principle, not perception. The man who doesn't chase attention becomes the one who commands it, ironically, by no longer caring. That's what makes you powerful, the unpredictability that comes from being untethered. The energy that says, I'm not hiding, I'm just not interested in being found. And when she looks again, if she does, she won't find a man trying to impress. She'll find someone she can't read anymore, someone who moved on without the need to show it. You don't have to prove that you've changed, you just have to stop performing. Let your growth be sacred, let your silence be untouchable. Now, speak out and comment below. I grow in the dark. My progress isn't for show. Number 3. Let the pain burn, then let it build you. There's no shortcut around heartbreak, no quote, no friend, no distraction deep enough to erase it entirely. You feel it in your chest when you wake up, in the silence at night, in the spaces where she used to be, and your instinct is to run, to fill the emptiness, to numb it with noise, movement, or fleeting attention. But the truth is brutal. Healing doesn't begin until you stop trying to escape the fire and start walking through it. Right now, your pain feels unbearable. It tightens your thoughts, fogs your focus, and makes you question your worth. But Stoicism doesn't tell you to suppress that pain. It demands that you face it, fully. Because pain, when observed without resistance, becomes your most honest teacher. It shows you where you depended, where you attached too tightly, where you mistook comfort for connection. You're not weak for hurting. You're weak only if you waste it. This is your raw material, and just like steel is forged through fire, your discipline, your clarity, your focus, they're forged in this burn. Every time you let the pain sit without trying to fix it, you sharpen. Every time you choose solitude over distraction, you regain control. You stop running and you start building. But here's the hard part. This won't be visible to anyone else. Your transformation won't be loud. It won't get applause. It happens in quiet decisions, in showing up when you don't want to, in hitting the gym when your body aches, in turning pain into momentum instead of memory. And eventually, without realizing it, you become someone she no longer recognizes. Not because you tried to show her, because you stopped trying at all. The man who rises out of pain without needing to be seen is the man who no longer needs anyone to feel complete. She may have walked away, but this version of you? It only exists because of that fracture. And that's the paradox. What felt like an ending was actually an invitation, not to fix what broke, but to forge what was missing. Let the pain burn. Let it strip away the parts of you that clung too tightly. Then rise. Not to prove her wrong, but to prove yourself right. Now, speak out and comment below. My pain forged me. I don't run from the fire. I rise through it. Number 4. When you stop reacting, you start leading. She pulls away and you flinch. She doesn't reply and your mind spirals. You wait, you wonder, you watch, and with every reaction you hand over a little more of your power until eventually you're no longer living, you're responding. Every move you make is tied to hers. Every emotion you feel is shaped by what she does or doesn't do. But Stoicism reminds us, the moment you react, you surrender. You've been operating under an illusion. That control lies in fixing, in explaining, in being chosen. But none of that is control. It's dependency wearing a confident mask. Real control isn't about influencing her behavior, it's about mastering your own. When you realize that, everything shifts. There's a kind of stillness that isn't passive, it's sovereign. You stop texting just because you're anxious. You stop watching her online activity hoping for a sign. You stop rewriting your actions to get a reaction. Because her behavior is not your compass, your principles are. And once you anchor yourself to them, the noise dies down. Imagine a storm. Everyone is shouting, running, reacting. But you're still, not because you're cold, but because you've trained for this, because you've accepted the truth. People will come and go. Emotions will rise and fall. But your direction, your purpose, stays unchanged. This is what happens when you stop chasing emotional clarity from someone who has already shown you where they stand. You stop asking, why did she leave, and start asking, what am I building? You stop wondering what she's thinking, and start becoming someone whose actions are too focused to care. It's not about indifference, it's about alignment. When you stop reacting, you free up energy. Energy that used to be spent decoding her silence now gets redirected into your goals, your health, your mission. And the irony? That silence becomes your power, because when you no longer respond, you disrupt the pattern. She expects neediness. You give distance. She expects confusion. You show clarity, and that contrast is unforgettable. You're no longer controlled by her presence or absence. You've stopped dancing to music she stopped playing, and in doing so, you become someone not led by feeling, but by principle. Now, speak out and comment below. I don't move with her moods. I move with my mission. Number 5. Stop reflecting her, start revealing you. There was a time when every shift in her energy became a shift in yours. When she was warm, you opened. When she was cold, you closed. You mirrored her moods like glass, always reflecting, never originating. But the truth is, the more you matched her energy, the more you lost your own. And by the time she walked away, you weren't even sure who you were without her reflection staring back. That's what happens when your emotional identity is shaped around someone else. You stop leading. You stop expressing, you start surviving, hoping your next move keeps the connection alive. But connection built on emotional imitation isn't real. It's dependency in disguise. When the relationship ends, that mirroring doesn't stop. You still watch, still react, still make subtle choices designed to get a response. Maybe she'll notice. Maybe she'll feel what you feel. But Stoicism reminds us that freedom begins the moment we stop outsourcing our emotional direction. If she was the mirror, now's the time to break it. Not out of anger, but because it no longer reflects anything true. It only shows who you were when you needed her to define you. The man you're becoming doesn't bend to attention. He defines his own presence. So stop reacting, stop adapting your emotions to hers. Start creating new emotional terrain that's yours alone. Speak from your principles, not from your pain. Make decisions without waiting to be seen. Laugh, create, train, build, not as a performance, but as a return. You're not here to confuse her. You're not here to make her curious. You're here to reclaim the center of gravity she once pulled you away from. And when she looks again, if she does, she won't see a man waiting for her cues. She'll see someone she can't read anymore, someone who's no longer playing her emotional echo. That's what makes this shift so powerful. When you stop being her mirror, she loses the comfort of recognition. You're no longer familiar, and in that unfamiliarity, something stirs. Doubt, reflection, maybe even regret. But by then, it won't matter, because you've moved on from reflection into revelation. Now, speak out and comment below. I'm not her mirror. I reflect nothing but my own path. Number 6. Don't feed the noise. Let it starve without you. When things end, chaos usually follows. Not always loud, but present. A vague message, a sudden like, a story that feels like a jab. She might reach out with half-closed doors, emotionally cryptic signals that keep you wondering. And your instinct? To respond, to decode, to re-enter the storm you just left. But every time you respond, you keep it alive. You fuel the fire with your attention, and chaos, like any fire, only burns when you feed it. You may tell yourself it's innocent, a simple reply, a quick check-in, but these small reactions aren't neutral, they're currency. You pay for them with peace, and you get nothing real in return. Every answer becomes another invitation back into a dynamic that left you drained, and what feels like closure is often just a loop disguised as clarity. Stoicism reminds us, you are disturbed not by what happens, but by your judgment of it. In other words, it's not her messages that disturb you, it's your belief that you must respond, that you must prove something, that silence is weakness, but silence, when rooted in clarity, is the greatest act of strength. So you don't reply, you don't engage, you don't give weight to breadcrumbs, you starve the chaos by refusing to dance with it, and in doing so you begin to break the cycle. The noise grows quieter, the old rhythm, the push-pull, the emotional yo-yo loses its grip, because you've stopped being predictable, you've stopped participating. Imagine her throwing a match onto wet ground. That's what your silence becomes. Not coldness, not bitterness, but emotional neutrality, the kind that can't be controlled, provoked, or pulled back into the game. She'll feel it, because attention is addictive, and when it's gone, withdrawal begins. But this isn't about revenge, it's about recentering. You don't starve the chaos to punish her, you do it to rebuild yourself, because each time you don't respond, you reinforce peace, you rewire your habits, you teach yourself that stillness is an option, not a punishment. And eventually you stop hearing the noise at all, not because it stopped, but because you did. Now, speak out and comment below. When chaos knocks, I don't answer. I protect my peace. Number 7. Build where no one's watching. That's where power begins. Growth doesn't announce itself. It doesn't scream through a caption or flash in a story. True growth happens in silence, in shadows, where no one's clapping and no one's watching. And that's the hardest place to stay. Because you want to be seen. You want her to notice. You want the world to recognize the version of you that's rising from the wreckage. But the deeper truth is this. If your progress depends on applause, it's not transformation. It's performance in disguise. Right now, you're tempted to document the change, to post that gym photo, to drop that vague quote, to show her what she lost. But that need to be seen is exactly what's holding you back. You're still orbiting her attention, still chasing a reaction, and as long as you're doing that, you're not building for yourself, you're building to be seen. The Stoic doesn't seek validation, he disappears, not to be missed, but to be reborn. He sharpens alone, he strengthens where the world isn't looking, and in that darkness, something rare happens. His identity stops depending on eyes that once looked for him. He becomes grounded in action, not reaction. So go dark, not as a tactic, but as a sanctuary. Wake up earlier, push your body harder, learn in silence, create without posting, rebuild your name in rooms no one knows you entered. Let your mission become your mirror, not her memory. And soon, the man who once sought attention becomes the one who no longer requires it. You'll start to feel the difference, not because anyone compliments you, but because you no longer crave it. You'll look in the mirror and recognize someone you built from the ground up, someone who didn't need likes or glances or curiosity. And when she looks again, if she ever does, she won't recognize what she sees. Not because you flaunted it, but because you've become untouchable, the man who disappeared and didn't just survive in silence, but rebuilt everything there. Now, speak out and comment below. I build in silence. What I'm becoming doesn't need to be seen. Number 8. She's watching, but that doesn't matter anymore. There is a moment she doesn't tell you about, a quiet glance at your profile. A pause when someone mentions your name, a flicker of curiosity she hides behind indifference. She might not message you, but she notices. Your absence is louder now than your words ever were. But here's what you need to understand. That doesn't mean anything, unless you still want it to. You used to crave this. The idea that one day she'd realize what she lost, that she'd look back, haunted by regret, that she'd see the new you and feel the sting of her choice. And maybe she does, maybe she's already started to wonder, but if that's still your fuel, then you haven't really healed. You've just shifted the spotlight. From needing her love to needing her guilt. From chasing her affection to chasing her attention. Either way, you're still chasing. The man you're becoming doesn't build for revenge. He doesn't train harder just so she'll see the results. He doesn't post subtle updates hoping she'll scroll and ache. He moves because stillness kills him. He evolves because stagnation isn't an option. Her curiosity? It's irrelevant. Her regret? Not your business. And yet, ironically, this is exactly when she starts watching. When your energy pulls back, when your validation disappears, when your presence becomes a mystery instead of a guarantee. That's when the mind starts to reach back, to search, to question. But by then, you've stopped leaving clues. You've stopped dropping breadcrumbs. You're no longer a chapter she can reopen. You're a book that closed without explanation. And that silence, it creates gravity, not because you wanted it to, but because it couldn't be faked. You've moved on in a way that can't be undone. That's what she feels. Not your anger, not your sadness, your indifference. You see, the most powerful shift isn't when she starts watching. It's when you stop needing her to. Now, speak out and comment below. If she's watching, let her. I'm no longer performing. Number 9. Be the stranger she can no longer read. One day, your paths might cross again. Maybe in a coffee shop, maybe through mutual friends, maybe in the digital silence where her name reappears without warning. And when that moment comes, something inside her will expect familiarity. A flicker of the old version of you, the one who hesitated, who sought her eyes, who once handed over his self-worth in search of her recognition. But he won't show up. The watch is silent, the watch is ready, but it is not ready. He won't show up. He no longer exists. You don't return to prove anything. You don't come back to flaunt your change or force her to regret. You return as a different man. Not louder, not colder, but distant in a way she can feel without you needing to say a word. Stoicism teaches that true mastery isn't about revenge, it's about restraint. It's the calm in your posture, the quiet in your eyes, the steadiness in your voice. She may look at you and speak like nothing ever happened, but underneath she'll feel the shift, the lack of pull, the absence of tension. The energy she once felt mirrored back to her now stands untouched. You're no longer there for closure. You're there because you belong to your path, not her story. You don't need to act aloof. You don't need to pretend. Your detachment isn't an act. It's the byproduct of inner work that needed no audience. And that's what stings the most. Not that you've changed, but that your change is so unbothered. She can't place you anymore. You've become unreadable. This is the quiet triumph, the return without return. You show up in the same room, but you're no longer the same man. She feels the emotional distance and realizes too late. The version of you that once needed her has died quietly, without drama, without noise, just the quiet dignity of a man who walked away and never looked back. So if you do cross paths again, let the silence speak, let your presence say everything, and let her realize on her own that the door she once walked out of no longer leads anywhere. Now, speak out and comment below. I don't go back, I outgrow. Number 10. The man who rules himself needs nothing from her. There comes a point when it all goes quiet, not because she stopped reaching out, but because you no longer wait for it. You don't check your phone hoping her name appears. You don't craft scenarios in your mind where she comes back. The emotional noise that once echoed in your head is gone, replaced by something colder, cleaner, sharper. Stillness. That's the arrival of sovereignty. Not the crown on your head, but the control behind your eyes. Not a loud declaration of "I'm over it," but a quiet knowing that says, "I belong to no one but myself." And that's where Stoicism leads you. Not to apathy, but to authority. You no longer react, you choose. You no longer chase, you build. She could call, she could show up with apologies, she could say everything you once needed to hear, but you're not him anymore. The man who waited, doubted, bent to be chosen, he doesn't live here. What stands in his place now is a man who bends for no one. Not because he's angry, not because he's cold, but because he's whole. The Stoic king isn't untouchable because he hides his emotions. He's untouchable because his emotions no longer dictate his direction. He doesn't crave validation because his values keep him grounded. He doesn't need closure because his path speaks louder than any final conversation ever could. His kingdom is built in silence, brick by brick, rep by rep, page by page. He doesn't perform, he doesn't announce, he simply shows up, every day, for himself. And in that discipline he becomes magnetic, not because he seeks attention, but because he no longer requires it. By the time she realizes what she lost, the distance isn't just physical, it's spiritual. She may look at him and recognize the face, but not the energy, not the calm, not the power that no longer bends in her direction. That's the ultimate transformation. Not when you change to win her back, but when you change so profoundly that the past version of you is no longer accessible. That's when you've won, not because she regrets leaving, but because you no longer need her to. Now, speak out and comment below. I rule my world. Her presence is no longer required. You started thinking silence would push her away, but now you realize it's what's drawing her back. Not because you tried to get her attention, but because you stopped needing it. She didn't just lose a man. She lost the peace, the certainty, the grounded presence that only you provided. If you're ready to keep evolving, to let your silence shape you into someone unshakable, like this video, subscribe and comment. I am untouchable. Stay silent, stay grounded, because sometimes the loudest growth happens when the world hears nothing from you.